So welcome to everyone. Welcome dear colleagues. I'm Sasha Dovzhyk and I am the head of the Index Institute for Documentation and Exchange. And today it's our second meeting at our annual event, a very special event which is called Victoria Day. This is the final event of the Victoria Amelina Ukrainian writer, poet, documentator of war crimes, who worked within the Truth House team. She was a human rights activist and a communication agent for communicating and conveying Ukrainian perspectives abroad, and she was a member of the Ukrainian PEN. And this list could be a very long list because, first of all, Victoria is a person who is near and dear to many of those present here, and I'm really grateful to you for coming here today. 3 years ago, Victoria perished as a result of the Russian attack on Kramatorsk, which was also a war crime. But we feel all the time that her voice is here. We feel her presence. We feel the light that she provides to us. And we hear that this is a very demanding voice and very demanding light, because Victoria really set a very high bar for all of us with what she was doing and what she was like. And so we would like to go on with the things that really mattered for her and that do matter for all of us. So to do this, the Index founded Victoria Amelina Fellowship, and every year, via an open call, we select an author from Ukraine and an author, a writer from abroad, who come here to Lviv for 3 months to work on their individual projects that study the causes and the consequences of the Russian aggression. We are really proud of this program. We will speak about it in detail a little bit later, but I would like to express our gratitude to Renaissance Foundation for supporting this program. This year, the fellows within the Victoria Amelina Fellow are Anna Gruver from Ukraine and Fulford from Great Britain. So we will hear more about them and from them. But before that, it's my great pleasure to invite for the welcoming speech a great friend of Ukraine, Chargé d'Affaires of the United Kingdom to Ukraine, Charlotte Surin. You're very much welcome. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. I'm really happy to be here today with you. We have gathered here to speak about our work, about finding those who are liable, who should be liable for the crimes, because Russia should be responsible for the attacks on Ukrainian cities, schools, hospitals, residential buildings where ordinary families live and where children grow. The story of Victoria and her contribution into the documenting of war crimes, her creativity, her heart that was beating for Ukraine will never be lost and will never be forgotten. The Office of the Prosecutor General has already recorded more than 200,000 war crimes committed in times of the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine. And these figures have real people behind them with their broken destinies and fates and their attempts to live on. Ukraine and the UK are working together to bring those guilty to account. But this should always be based on evidence. Every piece of evidence should be well documented and investigated. The truth is undeniable, but it has to be established and recognized in the world. And since most cases will be tried by Ukrainian courts, we do help Ukrainian courts to enhance their capacity. In particular, several years ago, the UK, together with the EU and the USA, created a consultative group on the aggression crimes, which supports the work of experts, prosecutors, training of prosecutors, judges, and mobile groups that work on sites of crimes. We also pay special attention to the victims and survivors, in particular survivors of sexual violence in times of armed conflict. We also support support the approaches that are trauma-oriented approaches that facilitate our access to justice. And I would like to pay tribute to all those who perform this tedious work on a daily basis: investigative officers, criminalists, judges, prosecutors, reporters, journalists, and many other people who are dealing with that. It's thanks to their work that we are laying down the foundation for justice. We know that investigation and court proceedings require a lot of time. You need to be persistent and patient. Victoria Amelina keeps reminding us how important this work is when she says that the answer to the truth quite often is even more truth. That's why regimes are afraid of even the smallest and minutest elements of truth. Every well-established fact, every established evidence, every documented crime make us closer to justice. Victoria Amelina did her best for justice to win. That's why today we go on with what she was doing. We try to make peace and justice closer to us. Thank you for your attention. We are very grateful to Charlotte Surin, and we are very grateful to the UK, to the people of the UK, for their support, for supporting us in such difficult times in our fight, in our struggle. I'm really happy that today we have so many representatives of the UK. This is the country that is very close to my heart because of some biographical reasons. But now let me give the floor. Actually, let me invite the main participants, the key people. So let's go together to the stage. And before I will introduce our participants, it's Victoria Day. Let me tell a couple of words about the discussion we're going to have. Let me first focus on the title, which is a line from Victoria Amelina's poem, Home Will Slowly Grow. That was a poem written in May 2022. The Return Story is the title of the poem. And actually, this is the line that sets the tone. So now let me read out several lines.
Слід витягати з кишені в безпечному місці, коли готовий. Дім помалу
The home will slowly grow and you will never stay without your home. And what have you taken with you? You have just taken this story, the story of return. There I brought it to the light and it's growing. So today we will be talking about the stories that are becoming the light, the stories that actually can become your home. It's symbolic that we are doing this in Franco House, which is the real home and museum of the classical Ukrainian right, and we are very grateful to our partners for their hospitality and for the warm welcome. It's a great pleasure and honor for us to be staying here with you. We have addressed the topic of home because, quite unexpectedly for all of us, it became a uniting one for the projects of two of our fellows. So we have Anna Gruver, a Ukrainian writer, poet, translator, member of Ukrainian Pen. She is originally from Donetsk, where she lived until the age of 17. She is the author of Her Empty Places and Real Estate, Neruchomist. And we have Lucy Fulford, journalist also and filmmaker, who was born in Australia, and she lives near London. She is the author of The Exiled, Empire Migration, and the Ugandan Asian Accident books. And they are joined by two more writers, great writers, members of the selection commission for the Victoria Amelina Fellowship. One of them keeps writing about home and about Ukraine from the inside of the country in Ukrainian, and the other one writes about home and country in Italian. And, well, seemingly she's doing it from the outside, but it's not so. It's really from the inside. So this is Olena Stiazhkina, a Ukrainian writer, professor of history, originally from Donetsk, also of over 90 academic publications in Ukraine and abroad, where she focuses on the topics of occupation quite often. She is also the author of great novels in God's language, Cecil, The Lion Had to Die, Zelman's Little Boat, where she reflects on home roots and identity in the 20th century and after the full-scale invasion. She also serves on the executive board of Pan-Ukraine. And we have Yaryna Grusha, an Italian-Ukrainian author, translator, and educator from Polisia, now based in Italy. She's a co-editor of Victoria Amelina's book, which is a documentary looking at women looking at war, a War and Justice diary. This book was published last year, and it got the Orwell Prize for political writing, and also her debut novel, The Blue Album, or L'Album Blue, if I'm right with pronouncing it, is an autobiographical reflection exploring the Chernobyl tragedy and the loss of home, which is also important for Yaryna. It's like a reflection of her life, and this novel was published in the largest Bunchiani publishing house, the largest in Italy. So as far as I know, most of the copies have been sold, and she serves on the executive board of Pan-Ukraine. So we're very happy to have those fantastic speakers with us on the stage. My first question will be for the fellows of Victoria Amelina Fellowship Programme, for Anna and for Lucy. And my first question actually refers to the topic of our today's discussion, the topic of home. I'm interested in how you managed to reach this home. Why now? Why today? Maybe we will start with Anna. Well, thank you. For me, it's a great pleasure to be staying with such great speakers today. Thank you, Sasha, for your introduction. And I will start with saying that probably all the time that I've been staying within this residency, I feel like home. I feel really like home. And when I was contemplating in one of my latest texts for Pen dedicated to the topic of home, when I was sharing my thoughts, when I completed it and it was published, I thought that it lacks one line. The line saying that even if you are coming from temporarily occupied territories, well, temporary means for 13 years this occupation has been there, but still you have a chance to go to somebody else's home and to feel like at home. And that's really incredible. I normally tell this in my private talks, but I think that today is the right place to also say this in public, because here we have people with whom I can be open and straightforward. Whilst being in bed in this residence, I just imagined that I've come to Vika's home, to Victoria's place. I don't feel that this is a residence of memory, of commemoration, because, you know, having memories of a person to whose home you are coming, where you can have some sleep and some relaxation, where you can think it over, what home for you is an absolutely different thing. It's an absolutely different type of memory. Today we're talking a lot about the practices of memory, and this opportunity is another type of memory. I think that this is an opportunity to bear something in mind, in your memory, but this is a unique chance, and this is something that has occurred to me only here and only now. I think that in case, like in my case, the war lasts for almost half of your life, the topic of home becomes more distant. It sinks into the past, and you already don't know what you're thinking about and what you're talking about. You don't actually remember what it's all about. And during this stay in the residence at the workshop, thanks to which I managed to reconsider some things for me, I understood that I'm actually looking for some attributes in the absence of this home. And for me, this topic is also very important. The same as this whole period of my life, which is related to the situation when I have no home. But the poem that Sasha has read, the poem by Victoria, showing that we bear with ourselves those stories of return, gives actually a ray of hope for me. And I think that I will give the floor to Lucy at this point. Well, thank you.
I'll keep you company at least for now. So I might repeat the question of what brought you to the topic of home, and why are you discussing and exploring it here? Why now? Why in Ukraine?
Thank you very much, and thanks for all of you for being here. I think I've been thinking about the idea of home my whole life. I grew up in Australia, but I always knew that my family came from many other countries. The short form version of that is that my maternal grandparents moved from India to Uganda in the British colonial times. They were then expelled from Uganda in the 1970s, along with the entire Indian population, and came to the UK before moving to Australia. My mother met my British father in the UK and then moved on to Australia, where I was born. So I suppose that background means that you always have sort of parts of yourself that you're looking to discover. And then when my family moved to the UK later, that kind of fragmented my identity a bit further. I came to this eventually in my work as a journalist, and that became my first book, The Exiled, which is a social history of this time, kind of led through testimony. I wanted to write a book that kind of brought this history from 50 years ago into the present and showed how the kind of legacy of empire is still amongst the next generation. So I've spent the past few years in particular really thinking about the idea of home and where my place in the world is and where anyone who has been forced to leave home might create that place. Bringing that back to Ukraine, I first came here in 2018 when I was reporting kind of around Kharkiv and Donbass, and that was very much about home. I was speaking to people who were choosing to stay, who were being forced to leave, and a lot of those conversations have stayed with me for a really long time. And in the years that have passed since then, obviously we've had the continued war here. We've had rising anti-immigration sentiment globally, including where I live. And for me, talking about migration and displacement is just like the story of our times. And it's only going to increase, unfortunately, with war and climate change. And for me, I just felt like this was the time to be exploring this here through this fellowship.
Thank you so much. And it means a lot for us to be able to organize this fellowship in such a way that we are creating a bridge between Ukrainian experiences and experiences of fellows who come from outside of Ukraine, but also with this drive to learn and to explore and to understand and to make our experiences understandable to our friends and communities outside the country. I'm now moving to Yaryna and to Olena.
So, Yaryna, as I've already noticed, you are seemingly describing your home like from abroad. You're trying to create the image of your home as if from abroad, as if externally. You're writing about specific traumas in our past, in our present. You're writing this in Italian. What does it mean for you to be presenting the image of home from abroad and to be writing in your second language, which has already probably become your native language in a way? Good evening to everyone. I'm really happy that I have a chance to be staying together with you here. Thanks a lot, Sasha, for and thanks a lot to Index and other partners who've been supporting this Victoria Amelina Fellowship, because that is a great commemoration and memory format. This is our form of memory that we have opted for, and I'm really grateful to all those who get engaged in the ceremony of commemoration every year. In 2022, the notion of home for me collapsed, the notion that I used to have. And the first text that I wrote in Italian was the text brought in by traumas, because my parents stayed in occupation, I couldn't contact them, and I needed to somehow explain it to the Italian audience that I don't have home. And back then, I really felt that home is really there. I mean, because of the absence of this home mentioned by Anna, I felt that there is there is my home. It's there. And that text was about the walnut tree that lives in the house, grows in the house or close to the house of my parents. And when I was a child, it provided shade to all of us, but it could not protect my parents against the Russian bombs. So starting with that point in time, I kept writing a lot of text for the Italian audience. I started looking for another image of home for myself. I started looking for senses, and thus I created a novel which contains a lot of images of home, because the main character, and she, like echoes with my autobiography, was born not in the place where she was expected to be born, because in the place where she was expected to be born, there was an explosion on the fourth reactor of the NPP, and the parents had to flee from the radiated and contaminated neighborhood, and the main character was born already in a different town. So her birth in a different town from the beginning gives birth to this search of home. In the novel, we really have a lot of those homes which she's looking for, both in Ukraine and abroad, because there is migration there. And the answer comes to her in the morning of the 24th of February 2022, the same as I got the answer on that day. So thanks to that text and to many other texts that I wrote, thanks a lot to translations, in particular Home for Home by Victoria Amelina, which we will probably discuss today. So thanks to all those texts, I really found my senses and I found my formula, showing that I'm staying in between two cultures. Home for me is still here in Ukraine. Maybe Italy has become more near and dear for me after I discussed my novel with many Italian readers. But anyway, home is a set of some senses, of some feelings, some perceptions, and this is the atmosphere created by the people around you. So for me, home is people, and people creating those feelings and senses of home. And most of those people are in Ukraine. That's why, this is the reason why home for me is still in Ukraine. But I would really like to convey the message to the Italian audience. And this is something that, so you can see in my novel, maybe I was too detailed in my description of home. All homes, really, you can see a lot of detailed information about homes, but I did this on purpose to give a clear idea to the Italians, for them to see what Ukrainians have been losing over a certain period of time, starting with 2014. So I'm really waiting for the Ukrainian translation of the Blue Album. I really have a dream to read it in Ukrainian. So Olena, now over to you. So again, home. I really like your novels. I find home in them. In particular, if we take in God's language your novels, so we can see the home that actually is lost. Then in Cecil, the lion had to die. We have another image of home that is probably fragmented, but still this is Donetsk, and then it kind of gets scattered and dispersed around the country. And in the last novel of yours, Zelman's Little Boot, or Чобіток Зельмана in Ukrainian, again you have a home, but it's more like a landscape. And I can really see that you're describing the landscape from the east of Ukraine. But this is something that echoes with me, because I really like your text and I have my own interpretation. But what is home for you in your writing, in your creativity? Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm grateful to you for coming. And, all day long today, I've been thinking that this event shouldn't have actually happened. Just because, Russia is killing. Russia is killing all of us, our people. I should have probably said the best of the best, but it kills the nearest and the dearest, and that's what I will say. We should rather be staying here with Victoria and discussing a lot of things. She always told that I'm a writer, I'm supposed to share some stories, and then she shook her head and started telling a story. That was her habitual behavior. But those villains, Russians, have killed her. Maybe she is also shaking her head or nodding her head somewhere in heaven, but we cannot see this. Therefore, I would like to tell about home from two stances, from 2 points of view. The point of view of madness and the point of view of mad solidarity. I was just trying to sketch things that I would need to say about home, and I purposely found one phrase. I then cancelled it, but still I found the phrase that it sometimes seems to me that that old home of mine in Donetsk consists of absences. Things that are already absent shout out loud, and I'm just frustrated. How could that voice be so loud with the thing which is no longer existing? So we have created a kind of an astral network, and we are tossing opinions and thoughts which are very much similar. I can tell you a little bit more about madness. As Victoria says, we are writers, so we are supposed to tell stories. Today I went to her tomb. I went along Pekarska Street and I saw a girl, and she had the same kerchief on her back as I have on my neck now. I stopped her. Of course, she was frustrated about me stopping her, but I stopped her and I told her, Vika, pointing to the kerchief, and she said, yes. Last year I went to the Victoria Day, and I will keep thinking about this lady all the time. I really wanted to hug her, but she was already in love with me. I was already in love with her, so we hugged each other. I knew that something else would come today. And when I came to Vika's grave, and as Francesca said, her a tomb is like a sign of infiniteness. And this is a great metaphor, because she told that the end of the tomb reaches the end of the earth. So we had a talk. Then I was walking along the same street, and I saw the medical university premises. I go to Victoria's grave quite often, but it was my first time that I saw this medical university premises, because now I'm talking about madness. My father was born in 1941, and there was a lot of anti-Semitic movement in Donetsk, so he went to Lviv to study at the medical university. I really went along the street so many a time, but I never saw the building. And I thought, okay, that must be probably a new building. But in 1958, it could not be a new building. Then I saw the old building, on the facade of which it was written anatomy, histology. So I made a guess that it was my father who actually attended this building. And I didn't ask him, did he have friends here? Was he a Jewish guy who nobody cared about, which I doubt? Did he fall in love here? And I burst into tears, because again, I considered it to be a gift from Victoria. That's the way it works. When in 2014 we left our home with 2 suitcases, it seemed that these are okay, just 2 suitcases, it's okay to go on with your life. But then it became clear that, in fact, you just need 1 suitcase in case of alarm, like we have now. Then I came to understand that it was even too much, because your experience and your years of life are in your palm, in your hands, and this palm in your hand is your home. And this hand should not necessarily be a warm one. It could be just a hand stretched from heaven, given from heaven. It could be cold with no memories, but it will definitely contain some memories. So now when I think about home, I think about people and about miracles. Only about that. Thank you. One of the miracles is language, creativity. Writing is the works that you create in words. So I would probably now address to Anna and to Lucy, and let us speak a little bit about your creativity, about your writing, that actually focuses on Vika, on the image of home, on memories, and I would probably ask you to tell us a little bit on how the projects you've been working with changed when you stayed at the residence. And please read out some extracts to us. Invite us to your text. Thank you. I think that I will start with my language is my home. Although in moments of numbness, as you repeat only the words of a prayer, you will think home is pain. When the windows rattle under the shockwave and the walls of your family's temporary home, yet another temporary home, sway, you will try to cling to words, but an unintercepted rocket will strike, killing and robbing the survivors of their home. And we must try to bear witness to this. Perhaps home is testimony. I can bear witness, therefore I have home. I'm traveling through a free country, therefore I have a place to be. Home is a doll in a velvet dress, which may still be lying my drawer in my occupied home in Donetsk. Home is the art albums collected over the years. Home is a swing and the shadow cast by a felled tree. Home is the uneven, dark music of jazz and the factory whistles. Home is the current deeper administrative building right opposite my home. Home is a cemetery where you cannot visit the graves of your dead. Home is an explosion. It is an explosion, an explosion. Sometimes, as I drift off to sleep, I repeat into the darkness, I love you, or I miss you. Perhaps I'm saying this to home. No one will answer, except perhaps the call, except perhaps the roses blackened by oblivion. Home is the unconscious privilege of peace. Home is the conscious illusion of war. Home is, for now, merely the long road leading to it. It is a question without an answer, an eternal wandering, a comma without a full stop, a long, long road home past the boundless steppe and the scorched earth. Well, sorry, I know it's bad to cry on the stage, but I couldn't do anything about that. Olena has mentioned that we are just tossing ideas from one of us to the other one because we are all like-minded. I think that from the very morning I've been thinking that I wouldn't be supposed to be here in the circumstances of this residence. And it seems to me that when we bear in mind everything that Victoria did, that she did for the village of New York, for Donetsk, for the children of Donetsk, who are already grown ups and who have already grown up over the period of time when Victoria is physically not present with us. So it was all about home, and I think that this residence could be available while Victoria would be alive. Me and Lucy could be here even if Victoria were alive. We could have this residence. This would not contradict to anything. So this realization of the fact made me so painful. I don't know whose idea it is. I probably have stolen the idea that home is pain. Home is always associated with pain. What I've come to realize here, and what actually changed my idea of home and my perception of home, is one thing. When you live your life and you have some life behind you, but you are going on, you are moving forward, and you already have your idea of home, you really need it like crutches. I need to understand what home is for you. And my idea of home actually has changed because I understood that in my perception of home, there appeared a lot of cold, elements of cold. Maybe this cold is supposed to act as painkillers, because if you've got strong pain or if it's a severe burn, you need painkillers. So I generated this cold, and I felt like more distant. And here I'm sitting in front of you, and I feel like naked. I feel like a person without skin, and your home is probably a possibility to feel without skin, without the possibility of staying here, without being afraid of pathos, and this is also an opportunity to say whatever you want to say and not to be afraid of doing this, because home has seen you in all your versions. So I think that Zelman's Small Boot is a novel that tells us a lot about this.
Lucy, I'll just reiterate, I like you to feel a tiny bit of home when at least the question for you is voiced in English. So how did your project thinking about home transformed while you were here at the fellowship? And please could you read out for us an excerpt of what you've been working on?
Definitely. I just wanted to pick up on something Anya said before about feeling at home on this residency, because I think that was really nicely put. And I couldn't agree more. You've created such a beautiful space for us here. So just wanted to say that. For me, obviously, a huge part of this residency is being able to come to Ukraine and to spend 3 months here. At first, I sort of had this attitude that meant I had to make every second count that I was here, that doing something that I could not do, that I wasn't here. So I felt like any second I wasn't interviewing someone, I was potentially wasting all of the time that you have put into me. I soon realized that wasn't very sustainable, and that a big part of this is to have the time to just be here, to have conversations with people, to come to places like this on institutional visits with Index and just like absorb the feelings of Ukraine right now. And that's something that I don't normally have the opportunity to do when I'm on like faster paced reporting trips. So that has just been like hugely valuable. So I've spent most of my time researching, interviewing people. I'm working on a project about finding home in wartime, looking at internal displacement or the experiences of people who left and chose to come back. This is born out of the idea that there has obviously been a lot more discussion internationally about Ukrainians who left as refugees in 2022 or earlier. And I think there's like a general lack of understanding of how disruptive this war has been within the country. And obviously displacement has touched almost everybody's lives. I'm hoping to chart some of the main sort of moments and themes of the war through individual testimony and stories that will give the reader kind of a shape of some of the things that have been happening. For example, I'll have a chapter on Mariupol and how people are creating a memory and living version of that city elsewhere. A chapter on displaced media and how people continue to tell stories in different places. I'm looking at the impact of civilian injury and rehabilitation as a kind of displacement, and environmental displacement, both through this war and looking back to Chernobyl. So that's sort of some of the topics that I'm covering. And I will read a little section. Displacement feels like such a universal experience, even historically and generationally, that at times I wonder how I can realistically portray it. My conversations reveal the nuances of what cannot be typified as a collective experience. How home grew quickly for some in the first year of the big war, as it forced a reconnection with the value of a house, a home, or a homeland. How people stay for all kinds of reasons beyond a tie to home, including out of principle, practicality, or a lack of other options. Like a young woman who told me how she was injured in an attack on her city in Donetsk region just 2 weeks before she planned to leave, because that was when the rent on her shop expired. Several interviews revealing how temporary departures became permanent reminded me of Victoria's poem. When Vera left home, she took nothing. I'll be back soon, she said, and took nothing at all. What is home when it is not a physical place or the objects that filled it? For some, it is a place in time, like the women from Slavyansk and Mariupol, who returned briefly to their apartments during the early days of the invasion and found that their homes already felt entirely alien to them. For others, it is the essence of a place that they bring with them, creating microcosms of spaces from occupied territories through art and community. Home may be found in language, in people, or in the simple defiance of survival. Throughout my conversations with very different people, I realized there was a common thread. Everyone alluded to the desire to be understood without having to name your past, something that comes from the unspoken understanding of shared experience. Whether that is living through the horrors of occupation, coming from a place you can't return to, or finding solidarity elsewhere. One day, as I felt a familiar frustration in conversations with people outside of Ukraine, misunderstanding the context and my experiences, I realized I was also seeking this unspoken understanding. It's a universal feeling to be seen and to be at home.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Lucy and Anya. It's such a privilege to be a witness to what you're creating. And I feel very honored. And I would like to ask now the two people partly responsible for bringing you here, Olena and Yaryna, as the members of the jury for this program, to comment on these excerpts and to respond.
So please reflect upon this in the way that would be the most natural for you. Just give them some feedback regarding the work of our fellows. Well, I do clearly remember a point in time when we had a discussion and we were choosing the finalists, the candidates. We saw that these two applications were really kind of intertwined. They echoed each other. And Olena has already mentioned that Victoria likes to urge us and to push us towards decision-making through creating some coincidences, some quizzes, and that was probably one of such coincidences of the sort Victoria created and keeps creating. So these two applications were based on the notion of home, and they were intertwined through this. This was the home Victoria had been looking for, and it seems to me that today we have seen that we have made the right choice, and that for each of you, this was something that brought something in for you. We were talking about language, about home, and I would also like to add, can be created also in other languages. And it was Sasha who spoke about my translation activities. So I actually do translate Victoria into Italian. I wonder what I would have done if they tried to give someone else these texts for translation into Italian. It should have been me. And in the last months of 2025, first months of 2026, I went again into this Home for Home because browsed through those texts once again to go deeper into them. So I was trying to create new Italian home for Victoria's text, and I really feel pleased about the fact that the Italian publishing house also feels a great responsibility lying on their shoulders for creating this new home. And Lana has mentioned the ark, the cemetery, the grave, and this notion of home where we are all at our own depths. So being a translator, well, I felt the following, quite often to find the right vibe, translators go to some places which they associate with the writer in trying to understand those writers better. But it was in September last year that I came to go into the depths of Victoria's text, because it was me and Sasha and Tanya who went to the apartment in Panich Street, and that was the point in time which really helped me to translate Home for Home. And now Victoria's Дім для дома, the Ukrainian version, has got its Italian version. And it was then when I was staying in that apartment, and then probably there were some other things that pushed me towards recreation of those texts. And translation is all about continuation and reproducing the same in different languages. So I think that this is all that unites us. We're trying to recreate those images. You know, I love Anna Gruver. I was trying to be objective when I was on the jury. There were several candidates who got the same grades scores as Anna, for nobody to ever think that I'm unbiased, but I am biased because I love Anna. You know, starting with 2014, when Russians came to Donetsk and when they occupied Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea, our city, I mean Donetsk, became a kind of sample, but mostly of negative things. Let's say people said that only Russian-speaking people stayed in this city. Some said that we were not fighting. So there were a lot of examples of those negative things. So back then I wrote a text and Taras Vosnik published it on Ukrainska Pravda without my name because I was still staying in Donetsk. And I wrote a text that was entitled Donetsk is something like a raped woman. That was really so, because Donetsk was really dirty and the utility enterprises workers had to remove the garbage and clean and wash the city from morning till night. And when today I heard Anna saying to our common home that I miss you and I love you, I thought that this is probably a statement made to this raped woman, because not each of us is ready to accept and to love something that is dirty, that is raped, that is wounded and injured. But we love our city and our home, so thank you, Anna, for that. And you know, we've got our common glossary. Of course, we are writing those texts, we are writing about what we feel, and sometimes we write in the same wording. But Victoria belonged to the people who seemed to have developed that glossary, that vocabulary. It looked as if we were giving birth to a certain word, and she already had a whole text. She had this word for our home, for Donetsk. Really, she stretched her hand to us then, and the dead people from Donetsk came to her and said that Donetsk has always been Ukraine, and that's what she heard. And I'm happy that this vocabulary, this glossary is still shared by all of us. As far as the second great text is concerned, I'm really grateful to you for sharing this opinion about the context of losses, because it's really true that if we're talking to the Western world, we may say, these are displaced people, okay, IDPs, that happens, or refugees, it happens, or homeless people, there are things like that in the world. And this seems to be like a standard. Something that is okay, because, okay, it's so with you, it's so throughout the world. Maybe they are right, but most probably not. And our friend Dovzhyk paid attention to the fact that in the occupied territories, I mean not just Donetsk and Luhansk regions, but a part of Zaporizhia, Kherson regions. So these lands have always been a large steppe territory where quite often and more frequently than other nations, Ukrainians were inhabited. So they were mastering those lands, and then Russia again came there and erased everything, destroyed everything, renamed everything, giving some of its own names to the cities and bowing low to the tsars saying and kings, saying that it was them who had created those cities. They destroyed everything, even graves. It's really true that our older generations don't have their graves there. And the old people who are still there and say that we are watching our graves have not gone mad, because they do know that the graves will not be there, but they are watching the spirit of those graves. So thanks a lot for understanding this context. Maybe our pain is not the largest, but its context is definitely the longest. So thanks for feeling this. Victoria is present in all the words said and not said on this stage. And I think that each of us has a dialogue with Victoria. It's an ongoing dialogue. Probably all those present here also have this ongoing dialogue with Victoria. And I would like to get back to this in order to make this dialogue more visible. And I would ask all of you to speak a little bit more on how her voice and how her ideas are present in what you're doing, in what you live with, and in what you're creating. Okay, so in fact, while answering this question, I would like to say that quite often I've been thinking about different memory practices. And I would like to mention the work that was supported by Pan-Ukraine. This is the book of dialects with Igor Kozlovsky, our prisoner of conscience. So I think that if we say that we are writing our works, our pieces, and going on with the tradition and with what has been done. So I think that this is something that is possible, but it's a little bit like a Gothic dimension, because we are alive and it's we who are going on with that. It's our responsibility on the one hand, which is sometimes an unbearable burden for us, but we do have this responsibility on our shoulders, and it's already a privilege. And you know, quite often I'm thinking what Victoria would be doing now. We quite often think about what we are deprived of, what we don't have. And I haven't got any word of consolation because the things that are no longer there cannot be seen. But I also agree with Olena, whom I also love, and I'm not supposed to tell this, but still. So I think that it was Victoria who actually made us fall in love with each other. In the physical sense, it was Victoria, because it's one thing to be reading some text from a distance, and it's another thing to be closer to each other. In this literary dimension, and also in the dimension of life and many other dimensions. I quite often think what Victoria would have been doing now, and I think that I can judge by that if I look through the poems written by Victoria. I agree that this is a kind of a vocabulary, a kind of a glossary, with all the directions that acted as guidelines for us for today's reality. Let's say today we are talking about home in any way. We are making references to Victoria's poem. So really, if we have a look at this small collection, because Victoria started writing poems at the beginning of the full-scale war, and it was luckily or unfortunately that the full-scale invasion opened up her talent as a great poet who could keep writing poems while a lot of other poets stopped writing. So in those verses, she really felt those key things which are still there. It's already the 5th year of the full-scale war, but they are still relevant, they are still with us, and they could be our key topics for discussions. These are the topics we write essays on, these are the topics we try to discuss here and now. And this is incredible, because actually the context is changing, everything is changing, the war is going on. And this is, this is war. This is something that changes everything. So many things have really changed, but the things described in Victoria's Home for Home are still with us. So I think that we still have something to speak about. And I would like to be thinking about that, keep thinking about that. I hope that we will also be speaking about Home for Home after the end of the full-scale war. We will get back to it because there are a lot of things to get back to it. It's a very uncomfortable book, so to say. I think that this book has not yet been read by everyone because it's really uncomfortable and inconvenient with a number of nuances and aspects that are not easy to accept in wartime. So I think that this talk is not yet over.
So I was going to read a section from Looking at Women, Looking at War that inspires me. This is from the very outset. I'm sure you all know it well. At the last moment, I turn around and run to the bedroom. I step on a chair to reach the jewelry box on the higher shelf. What if Kharkiv, Kyiv, and even Lviv will soon look like ruined Aleppo or Grozny? What do I take now if I am not coming home, ever? I take one pendant plated with gold and silver with little rubies embedded in it. I inherited it from my grandma, the only jewelry her mother had left her, and thus my oldest family relic. The great-grandmother who left it to us was born in Russia, somewhere on the Volga River. My Ukrainian grandmother and 2 Ukrainian grandfathers didn't have such old things. For them, everything was gone with the wind in this turmoil of the last century in Ukraine, the heart of the bloodlands. I put the pendant with rubies on as if it were my soldier's badge. So this passage just says so much in so little. It says so much about home and a lot of what I've been working on here. I think people often ask, like, what did you take from home? And I think that overlooks the fact that most people don't have time to consider that, or they just have time to take one thing, like this passage. It tells us that Victoria was thinking about the realities of what could happen in this war at the very outset of it, with a sort of prescience that maybe not everyone was able to have. And it tells us the whole history of this relationship between Ukraine and Russia through the family. This generational grief, which has been coming up a lot in conversations that I've been having as people reflect on their relationship with home now, and that takes them through the displacements that have happened through the Soviet years as well. So I guess I wanted to read this because it just shows her incredible talent as a writer and gives me a North Star in terms of my own attempts to write about home in Ukraine, and brings together the personal and the historical and the present kind of all in one go. And I think this whole book does that beautifully, and that's definitely something I attempt to do in my own writing.
Thank you, Lucy. It's all about the very high standard to which Victoria's legacy gives all of us. I'm actually very, very grateful to the international component of this fellowship, and to the fact that absolutely brilliant writers. Last year it was Eva Peek from the Netherlands, and this year it's you, Lucy, from the UK. Come and join us, because in a way it also reflects something of Victoria's worldview, something of her attempt to always try to translate Ukraine, to mediate Ukraine for people from outside of our country, and seeing how sensitive you are in approaching all these contexts and bridging them and lacing them together. I feel also this kind of presence of Victoria that is very, very, very inspiring.
Yaryna, now over to you. I can speak for hours. Okay, speak, please. Let's start with saying the following. So there has been an idea voiced about tossing somebody's ideas, and then Sasha read a fragment from Victoria's poem, and this is the citation that I used in my book, The Blue Album. And remember, you will never be without your home. This is actually the quotation I used. And when I finished the novel, my colleague Alexander Kile, translator from Ukrainian, read it. He said, "What were the Ukrainian texts you relied on?" And I said that definitely I relied on Home for Home, which was one of the main texts for me. And on the last pages, I have the small paragraph of some writers. These are several paragraphs of some writers. Victoria is there, and by the way, Olena Stiazhkina is also there on the list, and Francesca Melandri, who is with us, is also there. So, it's already a tendency to say that you are falling in love with Olena Stiazhkina, so I will do so because she's also on my list. So when I read the Home for Home in 2017, I thought that, can it be like this? Can anyone be writing like this? You were born in 1986, but you tell the story, the history of Ukraine via a family story. This difficult story. And this formula of Home for Home made me start thinking about my family story and going backwards in my memory. We discussed this with Victoria, and it's so difficult to share the history of Ukraine via the family story. So the first example of this was, for me, was Home for Home. Therefore, it was the text that really helped me a lot, and it keeps helping me. I've already said that when you read it in translation, you have like a reinterpretation of this. And then when we worked at Looking at Women, Looking at War, I saw the past that Vika covered in the period between Home for Home and Looking at Women, Looking at War. Her writing style changed. The audience of hers became broader. It became international audience. And in this book, she managed to lay down somehow and somewhere between the lines and between the pages some interesting points from Ukrainian history. These could be some names, let's say Alahorska or Executed Renaissance, which was the period of the 30s of the 20th century. But this was so well done. It was so intrinsic and inherent. It was a part of the dialogue, and it somehow connected the characters to this history. So it was also a relation for me. So this was, again, one of the guidelines for me that I took as the basis. And today, together with Mariana Savka, we've been discussing the Ukrainian translation. And there, at the end of my novel, there are 60 Ukrainian writers whom I'm quoting, and the Italian, not just implicitly, and the Italian publisher said, okay, please write the biographies of those Ukrainian writers, because we need to probably know more about the people you are mentioning in between the lines or implicitly. So Victoria taught me to do this. This was a masterclass delivered by her and by her creative works, as a result of which I learned how to do this. I wouldn't like to be mistaken. There is either a Japanese or a Taiwan publisher. Sasha knows it better because he's an accountant with us. He said that he actually found himself the Executed Renaissance via Vika's book. He started learning this. He learned more. And I had a similar story. Tullio Volado, one Italian writer, said that he actually found Volodymyr Ivasyuk for himself via my book. So I was really surprised, and I thought that this is because of this dialect, because of this memory in between my text and Victoria's text, because this sisterhood keeps working. For me, as for the writer, Victoria was primarily the first writer with whom I was discussing different texts, sharing ideas. She was the one who made me acquainted with Olena Stiazhkina. She gave me the email of Olena Stiazhkina, and then I wrote to Olena and asked her for one text which I wanted to translate. You remember, this was done for one Italian writer. We got acquainted at a conference, but it was Victoria who gave your contact data. So this dialogue, when you have someone to discuss different topics at the writing level. You have someone who is a sample to follow for you. So Sasha has mentioned setting this very high bar. So I'm really happy that this is all going on, that this dialogue is still there, and that I keep finding in Victoria's text that I read and that I translate something new for myself, something that really reverberates and echoes in me in many years, 3 years, or probably what I wrote in 2022 echoes with me now. So it's going on, and the topic of our today's discussion is about this nature of going on and about this dialogue. I'm really grateful that Victoria was in our lives and that she's still there. So I guess since everybody loves me so much here, I will share my story. And I will share 4 elements of this story. So the first one was when there was one more shelling in Kyiv, and we, with my friends, were corresponding with each other to check how things were going. And then, if everything is over, you just write a phrase, "Today it's not you," and alert is over. Everybody knows where this phrase comes from. And everybody knows that in the night which we faced with Victoria, that happened to her. Another story was, well, where is Katya? So there was a period of time when there was a lot of work with New York Festival, the village of New York, and it's still going on. We discussed it with Victoria. How could we actually reassess, and what word could we use to signify what she was doing in the east of Ukraine, for the east of Ukraine? In the Soviet times, we used to have the term cultural front line, but that was the Soviet word, and we thought that it would be good to call it vitaminization, or adding vitamins. It's a very nice, funny, childish word, but it's very nice. And, she was really like a vitamin for everyone. And while the east of Ukraine and the south of Ukraine are being raped, vitaminization is going on. Children have grown up, and the festival is going on. And I really thank a lot of people for whom it matters. You probably know that in New York, this Palace of Culture where the festival was organized has been destroyed by the Russian villains. There is another story which is probably not much comfortable for religious people, but, we have non-linear relationship with the mighty forces, mighty powers. Well, if you were taught by a good priest, by good parents, that is one thing, but people like me were not taught to pray and to believe. And one of the persons told me, okay, you are an atheist, you don't understand how much power and energy our diseased have to invest into letting you know about this. Well, you do not trust them. Therefore, in my diary, and I keep writing a diary because I promised that I would be doing this, I cannot find the reason to stop, therefore I have this diary. In my diary, Victoria is still alive, and we sometimes have quarrels with her, because I cannot understand why she did not stay at the book arsenal, why she left with those Colombians, and I hate Colombians because of that. But sometimes we do not quarrel, and sometimes when she lets her voice be heard, I ask this person who told me about this power spent by the people who perished. Is it it? Is it the occasion when she was trying to make herself heard? So sometimes she really makes herself heard, but she doesn't want us to cry. She wants to entertain us. So let me share an entertaining story with you. So we were going from Seversky Donetsk to Dnipro together with her. We got lost 3 times. We missed we actually went through the checkpoint, and the army guys were really laughing when they saw us for the third time at the same checkpoint. Are you going to Dnipro? Yes, so this way. Okay, are you to Dnipro? Okay, this way. Dnipro? This way. So this was for 3 times, but at that time in the car there was an awful song playing. I don't remember what the song was about, but in the refrain they were shouting Bourbon. For some reason, they were shouting it out very loud. And then this great word Bourbon started being used by us in 2 cases. When we were doing some silly things and nobody was scolding us, it was called Bourbon. Or when we didn't want to talk to people who were doing nonsense and we didn't want to scold them, it was also marked by the word Bourbon. So now I keep using this word Bourbon for these 2 categories of cases. So if you need, use Bourbon. Thank you. So colleagues, in fact, I was trying to infect everyone with my new roses, and I asked you to keep to the timeline, and everybody was very obedient and really did it. That's why now we as obedient people have released some more time to hear something from you. This is a very good community, and the fact that we are staying on the stage and you're staying in the room should not be a distraction, should not be a mark of differentiation, because we really feel your love, we feel your warmth, your sadness. Therefore, please, we still have several minutes to go in case you have any comments or questions, or in case you would like to share something with us. Just raise your hand and feel free to speak. And do you remember the book, The Syndrome of November? We haven't read it. And Victoria was also writing a novel. And, well, maybe somebody of you is going to read this novel one day.
I had a question for Anya and Lucy, maybe. Rozumíte? Dobre. I just was interested in whether there have been sort of themes that have come up in an intercultural sense about home, between understanding of what that means in Ukraine and for the UK, or for other homes as well, and whether your shared experience has reflected in any way on what you've been describing. Thanks.
Yeah, I've been so lucky to be here with Anya on this fellowship, because I've been getting her energy from her writing, her deeply personal experience, and learning a lot from that myself. I think there are parallels in some of the things that my family has experienced and the other people that I see here. So a nice example is yesterday I was doing my final interviews with some teachers from Mariupol, and one lady was telling me that she used to be the school principal, and I asked her what lessons she taught, and she said maths, and she was now working as a primary school teacher. And my grandma was the principal of the school who taught maths, who went to be a primary school teacher after she was displaced. And I'm not to say those are the same experiences, but you know, there are these moments of connection that I find here, certainly in my work, which are really valuable to me.
Well, in fact, I was really impressed by the fact that Lucy doesn't need any explanations. I don't need to explain anything to her. This is incredible, because I was ready to explain. I have been recently asked by Olena Husailova when we had a talk at Radio Kultura. She asked me, within this fellowship, how do you communicate with Lucy? We date each other. That's what I said. Yes, we had a date in Parajanov's restaurant, and that was a perfect date. And we asked ourselves questions that people normally ask each other during the dates, like, what is your favorite color? What is the favorite music? And then we were looking for some Ukrainian band, and I don't remember the name of this group, of this band, but Lucy liked a song. So that was a life experience that really surprised me, because it was deprived of any elements of formality that you may well expect from different programs and fellowships. I actually wanted to say this, but I decided that I will use this phrase only as a means of last resort. Okay, we still have some time, okay. But I've got lost. I've lost track of what I was going to say. That's the way it normally happens. I wanted to say something important, but I've forgotten what it was. Lucy was present in the book Arsenal, and that was a perfect event. And I really am fascinated with Lucy, because all foreigners are afraid of coming here, but she has come in such tough times. And by the way, the period of the book Arsenal was the period in between major attacks. But I came to the book Arsenal, I saw Lucy there, so it's great. And during those fellowship datings, when we were discussing this, it seems to me that we both liked it. And it seems to me that it was all done in between the barriers, about the barriers, language barriers, geographical barriers. So this experience really helps us grow and helps us get united and explain each other more. Oh, I finally recalled what I wanted to say. I wanted to express my gratitude, because, you know, it seems to me that we are creating very spontaneously those practices of memory, but we should also recall the Niko Kožuško Fellowship. This is the scholarship that is assigned to young writers in Kharkiv, and that's something that we are trying to do post factum, and we feel guilty for that, because if we did not manage to do something in time, in due time, we try to do it post factum to those people who are still alive. That's what I feel. And it seems to me that what is happening here was not an easy thing to invent. We had in this residence a Ukrainian writer who is having some rest in Lviv, and there is a foreign residence fellow who is actually putting herself at risk. So I'm relaxed here, Lucy is not. But whenever we have air alert, I invite Lucy to a bomb shelter to have some pizza. But if she doesn't go, I'm not sure that I will go to a bomb shelter. So in Kyiv, I normally don't go to the bomb shelter, but in Lviv, I sometimes do, because I feel some responsibility for this city. I don't know, maybe that's the reason. So this opposition is a very good opposition for having a dialogue, and it shows a lot. But Lucy has also been to Chernobyl. I have been to Chernobyl. It seems to me that Lucy is doing a great job, and I'm really happy that we have met with her here. And thanks a lot. Lucy has been to Chernobyl, she has been to Popasna, she has been to tens of inhabited settlements where many Ukrainians have never been. And she is doing that with no special pathos, and then she's sharing her funny stories. So we are very happy that it worked that way, which will definitely come. But before that, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you. Thanks for being with us. Thanks a lot to my interlocutors. I'm really happy that I have you. It's a great pleasure and honor to be staying with you on the same stage and to be calling you my friends and colleagues. So Anna Gruver, Lucy Fulford, Yaryna Grusha, Olena Stiazhkina, thanks a lot. Sasha Dovzhyk, a beautiful Sasha Dovzhyk, our talented, delicate, decent, noble, aristocratic writer, publicist. Maybe she will become a poet if you want her to. So Bourbon, that's what I shall say. Thank you. So I'm also grateful to our program partners, which is the New York Literary Festival, which is Pan-Ukraine, which is Truth Hounds. Thanks a lot for staying with us. Thanks a lot for co-creating this event, this fellowship program. I'm grateful to support for the International Renaissance Foundation, because it's thanks to you that this fellowship is taking place. And the whole team of Index would like to express our gratitude to the Robert Bosch Stiftung and Erte Foundation for their support and for their contribution into this evening. I hope you feel that this is a very special event and a very special program. So thanks for co-creating it. I would like to express my gratitude to the Index team, Olesa Yaremchuk, Ivan Kapach, Adana Bots, Angela Vasha, Yulia Kohut. We have also got our trainees, Gleb Olkhovsky and Anna Kozachuk with us. Thanks a lot to Yulia Kishchuk, who is also a member of the Index team. Thanks a lot for doing what you do, for making this happen. Sometimes you're doing an invisible part of the job, but it really matters. I really like working with you. I'm really grateful to those members of the jury of the Victoria Amelina Fellowship who have come to Lviv today. This is Tatiana Taran, Francesca Melandri. Thanks a lot for coming here. This is Alexandra Melin, Grigory Baran. I'm also grateful to Olga Rusina, Sofia Chelyak, Maria Tomarkin, and Alexandra Matveychuk, and Mark Slux for, well, they are not here with us, but they are definitely with us in their minds, and they are envious of us having such a beautiful evening together. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thanks a lot for keeping coming to share your warmth. We are all seated here in the presence of the great loss, great injustice, grief. But while we watch the sun, this beautiful ending, and this play of shadows, watching your beauty, I think that it is the right thing that is happening today. And thanks a lot for this magic. We would also like to hear the voice of Victoria at this event. Therefore, now me and the speakers will move from the stage, and we will just listen to a story, written story in Victoria Amelina's presentation.
When Mira left home, she took a bead from her jewelry box. When Tim was leaving his town, he picked up a rock from the street. When Yarka was leaving her garden, she took an apricot pit. When Vera was leaving home, she took nothing at all. "I will be back soon," she muttered, and took nothing. Mira has grown a jewelry box from her bead. She's growing a new home in the box. Tim has started a city from his rock. It looks just like his hometown, except there is no sea. Yarka has planted her apricot pit. Now she has her orchard around it. And Vera, who took nothing at all, she is telling this story. "When you're fleeing home," she says, "it gets smaller behind you to save itself. Your home can turn into a gray rock, a bead, last year's apricot pit, even a Lego part, a seashell from Crimea, a sunflower seed, a button from the dad's uniform. And then the home fits into your pocket, and there it sleeps. You should pull home out when you feel safe or ready. Little by little, your home will grow, and you will never, remember, never be homeless. So, what did you take with you, Vera? I only took this story, the story about homecoming. Here, I pulled it out into the light. Look, it is growing. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini!